Welcome back to the shop, you guys. It has been a long slog getting to this point with this bow, but we are finally going to go through the process of peaking and tweaking our Egyptian Duoflex experimental bow. Here it is, and I don't know if you can see the whole thing in screen, but it's turned out really pretty well, considering all of the roadblocks that we have run into during the course of this build. But today I'm going to go ahead and get our tips thinned out and take you through the shooting in process, and finally getting it really just tuned in and peaked out. So stay tuned, we'll just dive right in and get to the finishing on this bow. All right guys, here's the bow and the vise on the bench. Shot now maybe 15 times, not a whole lot. Just trying to get a feel for everything. You can see that this limb tip is still just ever so slightly running off to the right. I'm beginning to have a similar effect on the far end as well, just a little bit. So this will be easy to clean up just by coming in on this edge, and we'll thin this tip down just a little bit more, get that tracking right, and we'll do the same on the far end. But as it stands so far, holding its shape very well. I'm trying to shoot some matched arrows out of it, something a little lighter, and I'm getting a little bit of twang. And anytime, and this is just me, anytime I have these string contact bows where the string contacts the limb like this, you get that little bit of rattle. Actually, it's not going to do it in the vise, but if I hold it in my hand and when I go out to shoot it next and film it, I'll try to get some audio on the rattle. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. Just a little bit of rattle out on those tips. So I'll shoot some pretty heavy arrows that will prevent that. I'm not a huge fan of silencers on my strings, but if that's where we need to go with this to keep it quiet, that's what we'll do. So for now, going to go ahead and work down these sides on the very limb tips, and go out and take another probably 20 shots. Make sure that the limbs continue to behave. Okay guys, as best I can, I'm going to try and keep a clear view on the target down there. Not that I'm going to claim any great accuracy as I'm shooting this thing in. Here I'm going to try and hit the audio on this right quick. So you can hear that rattle. That's that rattle I'm really... I'm adverse to that rattle on my bows, but we'll see how it sounds as we're shooting heavier arrows out of it. A little bit of rattle that I could discern there at the end of the shot. Can still hear that rattle. So I don't think a heavier arrow is really helping me out with this. Can still hear it. Not much in the way of any positive tiller, and as a matter of fact, I'm equal measure on both measures here on the limbs, kind of waiting for one to settle in or out. So I'm just going to keep shooting and see if maybe one settles into a little more of an opening, and then deal with it from there. But for as long as it holds, I'm just going to kind of continue to shoot it as such, and I'm just going to keep putting some more arrows through it and see what changes we get. All right guys, I'm about 25 shots in here. Still, it's shooting better now. So I have done the repair on the riser piece. And this is the first time shooting since that repair. Still got that tip running off a little bit in an angle going this direction. So you can see it in comparison to the grip there. And when you sight down the string, it is definitely coming to this direction. And that's okay. So I'm going to continue to thin down this side of the limb at the tip. I'm hoping that taking those tips down also will help eliminate some of that buzz the string is getting, that vibration. I've gotten a higher brace height on here. I could stand to raise it a little bit more. That might also help it. So I'm gonna go ahead and start thinning down these tips now, since I'm not experiencing any more in the way of any kind of twist or anything like that. I think we have settled in those terms. So correct the twist and then continue on with the quality of the shot that I'm getting out of this bow. All right, shot her a few more times. Did a lot more work here on this particular limb to get it all lined up. It seems to be in a lot better shape now, at least in alignment. It looks like a little bit of twist kind of carries out to that tip, and so we'll just shape it as we move along to get it looking right, so aesthetically it'll be straight. So I'm going to go ahead and take it out, shoot it a little bit more. Now that I've thinned down that tip, I've also thinned down the far end and gotten them probably about as thin as I want to go. So there's my pinky finger on there. It's pretty thin, and looking pretty good, in my opinion. All right, guys, there's that twang. I feel like I can hear it a little more on the bottom than on the top. So I think I got a little bit of thinning yet to do on the bottom. So thinning that tip seems to be working. Can still discern it a little bit on the shot. Whew. That just hit the tree. Alright. For barely being 40 pounds, seems to be shooting pretty well. So as we progress through the peaking and tweaking portion of our bow, guys, this is a measure we want to keep track of as we move along, and that is the amount of set that this bow is taking on as we shoot it in. Now, you'll see that the grip of my bow is sitting just behind the edge of my workbench there, and I then used the back plane here to put my tips against. And so net result here on that build is that I've probably got tips that are sitting about a ½ inch back of the grip. Now, that's exactly, and actually where we started was a full 3/4, because I didn't have these wedged tips in here. So bought back a little bit of setback by virtue of the wedges that I glued on as the tip overlays, but ended up with a net 1/4 inch setback, more so than where we started. And so the amount of stress or amount of set that these limbs have taken, or string follow, if that's what you want to call it, is negligible at best. The amount of strain that these limbs are experiencing is pretty minimal, and could probably very easily be billed as a 29 or 30 inch draw and get up there around 40, 41 or 42 pounds. It finished out right at about 38 or 39 on the tillering board when we were working it, and that was before the tip overlays. I might have drawn another pound or so out of it. I haven't been able to weigh it again since I've put those wedges in there, or the tip overlays. So I'm gonna just call it 40, and could probably get a pretty decent pretty decent finishing draw weight. Put it up there at a 29 or 30 inch bow. Okay. Set up just a little different angle so that maybe you can kind of see the shape of the bow as it shoots. These were my two heavier spine or heavier weight arrows. These are a little lighter. So it sends them. It sends the arrows downrange pretty well. We'll get this in and narrow down the tips just a smidgen more to see if we can't get rid of that twang that I'm experiencing. All right, here we go, guys. So I'm about, I want to say 50 or 60 shots in on this bow now. And as far as alignment is concerned, I'm calling that good. I have not been able to eliminate that twang, at least while I'm just plucking the bow. Did finish out with very little, what do I want to call it, positive tiller. So really this would probably be a really good 3 fingers under shooting, and I am going to just leave it like that because I don't want to put a whole lot more energy into this bow because I want to move on to the next one. I think that a lot of the balance issue in the limbs that's causing some of that vibration has to do with the fact that I don't have a lot of the mass up near the grip area, right, and really thinning down as you go along. These limbs are very much parallel limbs for their length, and you can see that as you look down the length there. So if I had a little more pyramid shape to them, I'd be in a lot better shape. I missed that opportunity when I accidentally cut the one, when I was processing these limbs, the billets, and cut one a little too thin. That's what cost me in that area. So an error in construction for that one. So the twang remains, and we'll just have to learn to live with it. Shooting heavy arrows out of a 40-pound bow is kind of deleting its value. So I'm not gonna go with the whole notion of shooting heavier arrows. I really like the way these tip overlays turned out. I think I may turn to doing them similar to this on all of my bows. Kind of see how they look on a more straight-limbed bow before I decide. And if you'll recall, I had the one limb that had very thin bamboo, just that whole kind of narrowing and or thickening and thinning of the bamboo right out at the tip. This was that limb. It was my top limb. Kind of chose it as my top limb on purpose in case I needed to weaken the remainder of the limb to keep that recurve in place, and I never did have to, so that actually never did factor into the build.